The topic of immigration has been a contentious issue in American politics for decades, but under the Trump administration, it reached new levels of polarization. President Donald Trump, with the help of his hardline immigration advisor Stephen Miller, initiated a series of policies that were intended to deter illegal immigration, but they also cast a wide net over legal immigrants. While much attention was focused on building a border wall and targeting undocumented immigrants, a much more insidious plan has been quietly taking shape: the mass denaturalization of legal immigrants. Denaturalization, the revocation of citizenship from naturalized citizens, is a concept that seems foreign and unthinkable to most Americans. After all, once someone becomes a U.S. citizen, they are meant to enjoy the rights and privileges guaranteed by the Constitution, including the right to stay in the country. However, under Trump's direction, the administration has proposed a strategy to reverse that understanding, effectively stripping legal immigrants of their citizenship and sending them back to countries they may not even recognize anymore. Trump's team has made it clear that they are targeting not just undocumented immigrants, but also those who legally obtained U.S. citizenship. This plan involves a program called Operation Second Look, which aims to scrutinize the naturalization process for any errors or discrepancies, even if those errors are incredibly minor. What seems like a technical legal process, however, could have devastating real-world consequences for millions of people. In this video, we will break down the implications of these plans, the legal mechanisms behind denaturalization, the potential effects on families and communities, and the broader economic and social consequences that could result from such a sweeping policy. By the end of this analysis, it will become evident that Trump's denaturalization plan is not just an immigration policy. It's a threat to the very foundation of American citizenship and the values that the country has traditionally upheld. The legal foundation of denaturalization. The concept of denaturalization is rooted in U.S. law dating back to 1906, but it was largely considered a tool for exceptional cases, such as fraud or national security concerns. Originally, denaturalization laws were intended to prevent criminals or terrorists from using fraud to obtain citizenship. For instance, Nazi war criminals who lied about their past in order to gain entry into the United States were among those targeted by denaturalization. However, over time, the law expanded, and it allowed for the revocation of citizenship in cases where naturalization was obtained through false information or omissions. Under current U.S. law, the process for denaturalizing a person involves proving that the individual's citizenship was obtained through fraudulent means. The law gives the government the ability to strip a person of their citizenship if they lied on their application, omitted critical information, or provided false information during interviews. However, the definition of what constitutes a fraudulent omission is vague, opening up the possibility for it to be applied to relatively minor errors. Minor mistakes on immigration paperwork, such as misspellings, wrong dates, or even small inconsistencies, could serve as grounds for denaturalization under Trump's proposed plans. This is where the Trump administration's efforts become particularly concerning. While denaturalization may have originally been meant for extreme cases, the expansion of its application could target thousands or even millions of legal immigrants who made honest mistakes during the naturalization process. What's even more worrying is that the Trump administration has suggested that they will supercharge the denaturalization process, meaning that an already broad and often arbitrary law would be applied with even greater severity. Operation Second Look. The aggressive expansion of denaturalization. In the first term of the Trump administration, a program called Operation Second Look was implemented. This initiative was designed to revisit the naturalization applications of thousands of immigrants in an effort to identify any discrepancies or errors in their paperwork. The program's purpose was to scour through all naturalization records and identify individuals who may have made a mistake, no matter how small, during their naturalization process. Even an innocent typographical error could have devastating consequences for the person involved. The scope of Operation Second Look was limited at first, but Trump's immigration advisor, Stephen Miller, has indicated that the program will be significantly expanded in the next administration. According to Miller, the Trump administration will not only bring back Operation Second Look, but will supercharge it. This means the government will go after a larger number of immigrants, reviewing their citizenship paperwork and scrutinizing every detail to find any grounds for denaturalization. Under this expanded approach, even the most minor paperwork errors could lead to naturalized citizens being stripped of their citizenship and deported. The implications of such a policy are far-reaching and could result in the forced deportation of individuals who may have been living in the U.S. for decades, building families and careers. For them, the country they call home would no longer be a place of refuge or opportunity, but a place that could turn its back on them at any time. This approach is particularly egregious because it fundamentally disregards the notion of citizenship as a permanent and inviolable status. Once someone becomes a citizen, they should be able to live their life without fear of having their citizenship revoked for trivial reasons. However, Trump's policy seeks to make legal immigrants vulnerable to the whims of bureaucratic scrutiny and political agendas. The human impact, disrupting lives and families. The effects of mass denaturalization would be devastating, not only to individuals, but to entire communities and families. For naturalized citizens, the U.S. is often the only home they have known for decades. Many naturalized citizens arrived in the U.S. as children, fleeing violence or poverty in their home countries. These individuals grew up as Americans, went to school here, and have spent their entire adult lives contributing to American society. To suddenly face the threat of deportation after years or even decades of living in the country is not just unfair, it is deeply traumatic. Families would be torn apart as one member is deported while the rest remains in the U.S. The emotional toll on families who are suddenly separated would be immeasurable. In many cases, individuals facing denaturalization may have no remaining ties to their country of origin. They may have lost contact with family members, and their country of origin may have changed drastically since they left. In essence, they would be sent to a foreign country without a place to call home. In addition to the emotional and psychological impact, the financial repercussions for these families would be severe. Many of those who would be targeted for denaturalization have established careers, businesses, and homes in the U.S. If they're deported, they would face the loss of their livelihoods and be forced to rebuild their lives from scratch, if such a thing is even possible. This policy is not only an attack on individual families but also on the American social fabric as a whole. Communities across the country have been shaped by immigrants who have built families, created businesses, and contributed to the cultural diversity that makes the United States unique. Removing these individuals from society would do more than disrupt lives. It would tear at the very identity of the country. Economic consequences. A national crisis in the making. The economic ramifications of Trump's denaturalization plan cannot be overstated. Immigrants, including naturalized citizens, are crucial to the U.S. economy. According to the New American Economy, immigrants contribute nearly $2 trillion to the U.S. GDP annually. Furthermore, naturalized citizens are among the most economically active groups, contributing significantly to the labor force, particularly in essential sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and technology. If these individuals are suddenly stripped of their citizenship and deported, the U.S. would lose an entire segment of its workforce. Industries that rely heavily on immigrant labor would suffer greatly, leading to labor shortages that could cripple businesses and local economies. The healthcare system, already struggling with staffing shortages, would be particularly hard hit. Farmers who depend on immigrant labor to harvest crops would see a loss of workers, threatening the food supply chain. Additionally, the loss of naturalized citizens as taxpayers would create a massive shortfall in federal and state budgets. With fewer taxpayers contributing to the system, the government would be forced to make up for the deficit through cuts in services or higher taxes. This could trigger a wider economic collapse, particularly in states and regions with large immigrant populations. Economists have warned that such policies could push the U.S. into a recession, as they would have far-reaching consequences across every sector of the economy. Despite these warnings, the Trump administration seems intent on pursuing this course of action. Their framing of the denaturalization policy as a necessary measure to protect American jobs is an oversimplification that fails to account for the broader economic and social impact. The reality is that deporting legal immigrants would devastate the very economic infrastructure that has helped make the U.S. a global powerhouse. The political strategy, divisive rhetoric, and dangerous precedents. Trump's immigration policies are as much about political calculation as they are about governance. By targeting immigrants, including those who have legally obtained citizenship, Trump is appealing to the base of his supporters who view immigration as a threat to American values and jobs. This strategy, built on fear and division, has proven effective in galvanizing his core voters. However, it also comes with significant political risks. While Trump's base may cheer these policies, they alienate the broader electorate, particularly immigrants and their families, who make up a substantial portion of the voting population.